This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us for this first edition of CBN NewsWatch for this Tuesday, January 29th. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, exceptionally cold weather is hitting much of the country in the next few days. Wind chills in some places could be going as low as 60 below zero. We're going to tell you what's behind it. And President Donald Trump endorsing classes about the Bibles in public schools. Plus, a Christian woman is finally set free in Pakistan years after she was charged with blasphemy. And some practical tips on how you can improve your health. And that includes losing weight. All those stories and much more are ahead in this edition of CBN NewsWatch. We want to begin, though, with that bitter cold, the coldest air in a generation. What that means is life-threatening low temperatures expect to shatter records and plunge the Midwest into a deep freeze. It is all because of a phenomenon called the polar vortex. According to AccuWeather, that's defined as a large pocket of very cold air, typically the coldest air in the northern hemisphere, which sits over the polar region during the winter season. The air has found its way to the United States. A wind chill of 50 to 60 below zero are expected to cross the Midwest this week, causing government officials to declare states of emergencies for Wisconsin all the way down to Alabama. In parts of the Midwest, the extreme cold comes on the heels of a snowstorm, making for dangerous travel conditions.
It's rough, slippery, and it's nasty.
I wouldn't want to drive in this type of weather at all.
Just a point of reference, by Wednesday, Chicago could be colder than Mount Everest, Antarctica, or even Siberia. Caitlin Burke is following this story for us today and tracking this cold weather. So what can we expect over the next couple of days across the nation?
Really colder than most people have experienced before. So you mentioned this is kind of the coldest air, they're saying, in a generation. The Midwest is really being hit the hardest. But what's interesting is that the polar vortex actually split. And so not only is the Midwest getting hit, but the South is getting hit. The East Coast will see some cold temperatures, definitely nowhere near as cold as the Midwest. But they're going to be struggling. Schools in the South are kind of preemptively closing. The Super Bowl could be, it's still happening, but flights have already been canceled in Atlanta. So it's pretty interesting. Lots of states of emergency being declared. The South especially is also going to probably be getting some ice and snow, but really the Midwest is where it's dangerous and life-threatening. There's even been warnings not to breathe deeply when you're walking outside. And as you mentioned, those wind chills could get as low as negative 50 to negative 60.
Oh, that is frightening stuff. Will we be seeing more polar vortexes in the future?
Scientists are saying that we should be on the lookout for more. I am not totally sure all of the details behind that, but basically this is the coldest air in the northern hemisphere that has been sitting over the Arctic. And because it kind of gets a little bit cooler, it's able to shift south. Normally it goes to Canada, but over the last, I think the last one that we really experienced was 2014, so they definitely are happening more often.
All right, so it's made its way all the way to the United States. Bundle up indeed. Thank you, Caitlin, for following this for us today. President Trump will be giving his State of the Union speech after all next Tuesday. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi invited him to give the speech yesterday, since the partial government shutdown is now over, at least for now. But the president has threatened to shut down the government again if Congress cannot come up with a budget deal that includes funding for a wall along the parts of the border with Mexico. We're going to have the latest on what to expect from the president's speech tonight on CBN's Faith Nation. That begins at 6 p.m. Eastern only on the CBN News Channel. And on our Daily News Rundown podcast today, CBN's Caitlin Burke will be talking to Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson about congressional reaction to the government reopening and the talks between Republicans and Democrats to reach a spending deal. You can go to CBN.com and click on the show tab to find the Daily Rundown page where you can listen and subscribe to that podcast. President Trump is speaking out in favor of Bible literacy classes taught in public schools. The president declared in a tweet Tuesday, giving students the option of studying the Bible is great. The president's support comes as lawmakers have introduced Bible literacy bills in Florida, Indiana, Missouri, North Dakota, Virginia, and West Virginia, some of which have already been voted down. Now, for more on the Bible teaching in public schools, CBN's John Jessup spoke with Trey Goins-Phillips from FaithWire. Here's a look at that interview.
Trey, these classes would focus on biblical literacy and the Bible's historical significance. Lawmakers now behind the bills say they want to restore traditional values in schools, but opponents say these bills could violate the U.S. Constitution's Establishment Clause. What's your take on that?
Well, to me, if you're going to have a class that's talking about literacy and it's talking about the role that Scripture has played, and particularly in the founding of the country, I understand complaints and concerns about proselytizing, but I think these bills and the defenders of these bills have made clear that they don't want to preach like they're in a pulpit. They want to teach like they're in a classroom and help students to understand better. As an anecdote, I had an experience when I was in community college several years ago. It was a public college, obviously, and I was in a literature class, and one of the students pushed back on our professor when she referenced an Old Testament passage and said, "You can't teach that in a public institution. That's against the separation of church and state." And she said, "Well, from a literary perspective, the Bible has historical significance." And she said, in the Old Testament in particular is the story of the Jewish people. It's the story of how they came to be. So these texts, the Old and New Testament, have historical significance. Right. And I think to deny that is just ignorant.
Right. Well, to that point, we use phrases all the time like Good Samaritan, which has more than just cultural reference. It has biblical reference. So if you don't teach that, you're missing the significance there. But in a country that's becoming more and more secular, won't it be difficult for measures like this to pass?
I think there's kind of a hunkering down in local smaller districts, but I do think nationally we'll see more and more pushback from big groups like the UCLA and what have you.
Trey, thanks so much for joining us.
Asia Bibi is now free to leave Pakistan and join her daughters in Canada after more than 8 years in prison and detention. This comes after Pakistan's highest court upheld its acquittal of Bibi, clearing her of all charges of blasphemy. It all started in 2009 when she brought water to fellow workers who wouldn't drink from the same container as she was because she's a Christian. They ended up arguing and they accused her of insulting Islam and the Prophet Muhammad. Her attorney called it a victory not only for Bibi, but for Pakistan's constitution and rule of law. One justice went as far as to say Bibi's accusers were guilty of perjury, and if the case had not been so sensitive, they should have been jailed for life. A friend told the Associated Press Bibi is overjoyed, quoting her, "I am really grateful to everybody. Now, after 9 years, it is confirmed that I am free and I will be going to hug my daughters." Huge medical news out of Israel, where scientists say they believe they discovered a cure for cancer. That news comes from Accelerated Evolution Biotechnologies and reported by the Jerusalem Post. The company's researchers say the cure will be effective from day one. Treatment will last a duration of a few weeks and will have no or minimal side effects and comes at a lower cost than other treatments on the market. The science behind it is complex. It is based on peptides instead of antibodies, which provide a multiple target attack on cancer cells and cancer stem cells. So far, the treatment has only been tested on mice, but the Israeli company expects to start clinical trials soon. Coming up, what could be behind the deadly terror attack on a church in the Philippines and how it could influence the efforts towards peace between different religious groups in that country? Stay with us.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children.
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit cbn.com. The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com to get your copy today.
The threat of ISIS has reemerged in the Philippines as 27 people were killed in a terrorist attack in a Catholic church Sunday morning by 2 suicide bombers during Mass. The attack happened on the southern Philippine island of Jolo. President Rodrigo Duterte visited the site of the bombings Monday to comfort the survivors. CBN News' Asia correspondent Lucille Tolucin brings us this story now from Manila.
The first bomb went off inside the Cathedral of Our Lady of Mount Carmel during the 8:30 Mass. And as police and soldiers rushed to help the wounded, a second bomb exploded at the car park, leaving at least 27 dead and more than 100 injured. Former bishops Angelito Lampon and Orlando Quevedo, who have served the church in Jolo since after World War II, described Sunday's bombing as desecration of a sacred place. In a joint statement, they said, "We strongly appeal to our security and military forces to flush out the perpetrators of this barbaric crime and bring them to justice. May the one God of all preserve us from evil and lead us to the way of peace." The deadly bomb attack poses as a challenge to the Bangsamoro Organic Law that has just been ratified in a recent plebiscite in Mindanao. The law is envisioned to end a 50-year conflict in the region and bring peace by granting an expanded autonomy to the Muslim Filipinos in their homeland. The Philippine Armed Forces have heightened security measures to prevent other terrorist attacks from happening, especially in the areas where a second plebiscite on the Bangsamoro Organic Law is taking place next week. In this plebiscite, other municipalities will be voting for inclusion in the new expanded autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao. Lucille Talusan, CBN News, Manila.
Still ahead and switching gears to a more personal level, did you make a New Year's resolution to lose weight but you are hitting walls? We've got some advice from a weight loss expert that might help you keep your health goals for the year. Stay with us.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children.
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I Wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Region's first ROTC graduate student.
It has the power to influence weight loss, boost your immune system, and improve brain function.
We've seen an explosion of data on the role of the gut microbiome in health.
The free Build a Better Gut booklet reveals the latest information about the gut microbiome. You'll discover how your gut affects the rest of your health.
The gut microbiome has been linked to depression and cancer and heart disease.
Learn how to build a stronger, healthier gut.
The microbiome, if it's in good composition, are really protecting us all the time from more invasive things.
Get the Build a Better Gut booklet, free from the Christian Broadcasting Network. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut.
You need to make sure that your microbes are working with you, not against you.
And if you order online, you'll get immediate access to the Build a Better Gut series, a digital copy of the booklet, and related bonus material. Build a Better Gut today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut for your free copy.
Well, if you are trying to stick to that New Year's resolution to lose weight, listen up. On this week's Healthy Living show, a weight loss expert says the time of day we eat makes the difference.
One thing that is really sort of like, I consider your trademark, is you're always on the cutting edge of science. We remember decades ago when you first came up with the concept of real age, which is you could be 40 years old but have the body of a 50-year-old or the body of a 30-year-old, depending on your lifestyle choices.
So your calendar age can be, or your biologic age can be now for women 32 years older or younger than your calendar age. So at age 75, you can be as young as 43.
I love it. That gives us all something to shoot for. And then the opposite can be true, but we don't want to talk about that. And then I remember talking to you. You were the first one who ever talked to me. First time I ever heard about kimchi and probiotics and those healthy bacteria that come from foods like kimchi. So there again. And so once again, you're on the cutting edge of medical and health news with your brand new book called What to Eat When. And really kind of the news headline, which is fascinating, is it really matters what time of day you eat. And it's really fascinating. I don't think a lot of people realize this. So you could eat the same number of calories one day as the next and gain more weight depending on when you eat.
Or lose more, right. So what happened is, as you said, so we follow the science very closely. 7 to 10 years ago, we started seeing data in animals that when they ate in the day mattered a great deal. Remember, the culture changed in America, so we would have fourth meals and we would eat late at night, etc. And they started studying that in animals, and the animals that ate the equivalent of 4 meals a day, ate all the, for 18 hours, ended up with heart failure. Then about 2.5 years ago, there started being data in humans that intermittent fasting, that was, and especially when you did it in the evening, when you stopped eating it, so I've got a guy here called Mr. Sun.
Okay.
So when you eat,
love it.
when you eat with this guy when this guy is out, I'm going to put him here just for a second, as long as he won't block.
This is important. This prop is very, very important.
Right. So when you eat when he's supposed to be out, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., you actually are hacking your system to maximize your health and your weight loss. That is a calorie. We were always taught in medical school, a calorie is a calorie is a calorie. But it isn't.
It isn't.
A calorie in the morning is less than a calorie in the evening.
Amazing.
So it's a huge difference. It's about a 25% difference.
Wow, say that again. I think that's such a big, important thing. A calorie in the morning is less than a calorie at night.
Right, and so my favorite, now there are about 10 studies in humans, but my favorite is this group of Spanish women, because they eat their biggest meal at lunch. And there were 400 of them who were overweight. And what they did is they randomly allocated them to eating their biggest meal before 2 p.m. or after 3 p.m. Same number of calories. The group that ate before 2 p.m. lost 25% more weight.
That's a
than
lot.
That's a huge amount than after 3 p.m. And so I was pretty skeptical, and so you always do it on yourself. I'm in the old school of researchers, right? You always do it on yourself before you expose patients or subjects to it. There's some great stories about that we could do on another show. But anyway, of all the research that's been stopped because the guys did it on themselves first and found out, or the women.
They're their own guinea pigs.
Right. And so I was amazed when you eat more early. I had been skipping breakfast and just having coffee for breakfast, right?
Right. A lot of people do that.
But when you eat more early and stop eating at 7 p.m., 3 days later, you're not hungry in the evening.
Okay.
And it's no big deal. And so you end up going, I go now from 7 p.m. to 10 a.m. without food. I eat breakfast at 10 a.m. So it's 15 hours.
15 hours.
So you get the health benefits of intermittent fasting, the weight loss of ketosis, without any sweat, without having to eat a pound of bacon or, a lemon detox or whatever, and without having to give your credit card to someone.
This is great information. It's really revolutionary and life-changing, and you can lose weight and be healthier with very little effort. We're going to take a quick break and be back with Dr. Michael Roizen, author of the new book, What to Eat When.
Later on in the show, Dr. Roizen talks about why we need to eat our biggest meals 8 hours before bed, why we should eat dinner for breakfast, and the truth about coffee. Now, you can see that entire interview on our Healthy Living program tonight on the CBN News Channel. That's at 9:30 Eastern. Coming up, a funeral for a veteran with no family. It will bring you to tears when you see what perfect strangers did when they heard about it.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children.
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Prophecy thousands of years old.
We were called to be a light to the world.
Being fulfilled today. Discover how. Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life. Just call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is. This is what I'm doing.
See how the people of Israel are fulfilling prophecy.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
By sharing their knowledge.
In Africa, in Asia, in South America, in East Europe.
And their love.
This is how we work. This is us.
Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
Welcome back. An Air Force veteran was going to be buried, and there were fears no one would be there because he didn't have a family. But officials of the Central Texas State Veterans Cemetery said in a Facebook post invited people to attend. A local motorcycle group, Wind Therapy Freedom Riders, also tried to get people to come. And turn out they did. This Twitter post by local reporter Janet Shamlian says it all. She tweeted, "A line of cars stretching for miles to attend the funeral of an Air Force veteran with no family." One woman commented after seeing the photo, "Just bucket loads of tears for this gathering, this Air Force veteran, and for the hope this brings about the real true values of Americans all across this great nation." The funeral was held Monday, and so many people attended to honor and remember the Air Force veteran Joseph Walker that most had to stand. Walker served in the Air Force from 1964 to 1968, that is according to the television station KVUE. The 72-year-old Walker was buried with full military honors. Beautiful indeed. Right now it's time for your Tuesday Tweetable, and here's a message of encouragement to share with others. God's intention is for you to live, not merely exist. You are His masterpiece, and He has a master plan just for you. Don't stop living. If you're breathing, God has more for you to do. With that word, I encourage you to make this a terrific Tuesday. That will do it for this first edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. And our CBN News programs are available anytime on the CBN News channel. Plus, we'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope you'll join us again right here next time. Have a terrific Tuesday, everybody. God bless.